I think our first order of business is we'll look at the meeting minutes from August. I don't know if anyone had any comments or changes to the minutes that we need to entertain before we take a vote. I did not have any of them.
I move we approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Do we have a second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Great. So then we're going to move on. April is here with VNEX. She's going to give us a little update on VNEX activities and maybe some new membership. And we can also talk a little bit about some of the conversations we've had in follow-up to the release of the energy plan. So,
yeah. Hi, everybody. We have a lot going on right now. One of the big things that I've told you guys about is the 17th Energy Career Cluster. We're looking at possibly putting legislation in this session to get that moved through. We have met with the governor's office. They are supportive. We met with the Department of Education. We've been in talks with them. They seem somewhat supportive of this. They know that we're going to be putting this legislation in. Back this afternoon, I'm driving to Lynchburg to meet with Representative Scott Garrett to talk to him about getting the bill drafted. The deadline for that is December 4th. So I'll keep you up to date how that goes. But you know, I don't know for sure if we'll get it passed this session, but I do feel confident that Virginia is ready to look at getting an energy workforce cluster, which will be good for all of us.
April, can I ask a question? Will anybody be kind of, are you working with anyone else on that legislation, or is it?
Yes, the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, that's Matt Kellum is the chairman of that organization. He really is the lead on it, but because our board has made it, from the very beginning, has made this workforce a priority, we work hand in hand with him. Our lobby team, which you guys met last time at David Halleck with 2 Capital Consulting, they're helping us navigate through this, so that we're taking it on. But if you go to the 17th, which I believe I've handed it out to you before, if you don't have it, let me know. There's we have a information package on the 17th Energy Career Cluster, and we have a lot of companies that have signed on, and we also have I think some of the, what's the county? Several counties also signed on in support of it. A couple of the community colleges have signed on. So there's a list of logos on our website, and then we have an individual list, which we have a little over 100 individuals that have signed on in support. The governor's office has been very pleased to see that the support we have. In fact, this one. I think I have some of the flyers.
Does everybody know and familiar with what April's been talking about with the they've been working on for this energy workforce cluster?
Let's see what I got. Some of those. Hand those out. I believe I've handed these out to you all before. And at the bottom of the page, there is a website you guys can go to and sign up. This will be able to give kids a path for energy jobs. Right now, energy jobs are mixed in with agriculture and manufacturing clusters. We feel that it's important because energy jobs are really the backbone of this country, and energy should have its own cluster. If someone is interested in getting involved, they'd have to do some searching to what career paths that they could have. So this would give a lot of opportunity.
Can I get one of those copies too, please?
If I have any extra here, I will.
Great, thank you.
Let's see. The other thing is, Tom would jump in here too, is on the governor's energy plan. Tom and I met, had a conference call with Will and Al, and talked to him about our disappointment that we didn't get our recommendations into the plan. But we understand where the governor's office was coming from too. But what has happened now, Tom, I haven't caught you up on this, is that we have asked and we're working out getting a face-to-face meeting with the governor to review those recommendations and talk about further activities that we can do to try to make some of those recommendations come into play.
Yeah, I think, as April said, we had a conversation afterwards of understanding what the scope of the energy plan, and not that this is the be-all, end-all of energy policy for the state by any means, but that recognizing the importance of not only that the nuclear energy provides to the state currently, but the future and the infrastructure that's here is something we don't want to get lost in the shuffle as we continue to look at things going forward. So it was great to have that conversation. I think it was a good platform, and we'll continue next year looking at ways we can highlight their importance. And
when we have that meeting, Tom, definitely you'll be invited to come with us and have that meeting. I just don't know when. The governor's office is waiting till later this month to give us a date for a meeting, so we're waiting on that.
So maybe I'm just being naive here, but did you get an explanation of why it chose not to adopt the recommendation?
Yes, I could defer to Alan Will too, because they gave us the explanation.
I think the plan itself provides that. I don't know how satisfying an explanation it will be, but this was the first year, or the first time since the energy plan is every 4 years, and this is the third one in modern times. I think there were some pre-2007, but that's the first one that you can actually find anywhere on the website. This is the first one that is very focused on 5 sectors only, 5 policy areas only. And there's sort of an explanation here on the first page in the intro. The recommendations provided in this energy plan focus on both the electric sector and the shifts in the transportation sector that touch on or impact the electric sector. There are important market and policy changes occurring with our energy system regarding energy production and the extraction industries, but those issues are outside the scope of this report. And there are several other areas that are not addressed in here as well. Many traditional forms of energy, including petroleum, very important to the operation of the Commonwealth and its economy, but they weren't addressed in here because the focus was on these 5 goals that are all surrounded under the rubric of grid modernization. So a lot of focus on distributed generation, not much focus on central station generation. Not that that's the only purpose of nuclear science and nuclear issues, but that's part of the reason. And we heard from, and I should point out that I'm not a member today. Will is. I'm on staff today. We haven't replaced Eric. I've heard so far from 2 or 3 other sectors that also were disappointed. And I told them the same thing that we discussed on our call. It's not all of energy policy of the Commonwealth in this. They are the priorities. So, you know, what gets done is what's the highest priority. And we are just one agency, and we have limited resources. But there are other energy policy initiatives and matters that are being dealt with and will be dealt with. So you get the audience with, when you get the audience with the governor's office, they may be able to provide some help, and especially on the workforce recommendation, because there is a workforce lead at the cabinet level now.
We deal with Megan Healy. That's who our contact is. She's been with us on this since pretty much the beginning.
Okay. So I think one thing that this does provide us the opportunity to have the follow-up conversation about the importance of nuclear, but it will be incumbent, April and I have talked about this, it's incumbent on us to also, importance and emphasis and is great, but also on kind of actions of what we're asking there to be done, right? We can't expect folks to just pull things, and we have our list of recommendations. I think that's a good place to start, and we can talk about that when the time comes, but also kind of, okay, well, what are we asking them to do? Because if you look at the energy plan, there are concrete actions under those priorities that they're looking to do. So,
and one other thing to know is Ollie Hagar, the VNEC chairman, and Tom have jointly signed an op-ed that I'm working on getting placed to also discuss our recommendations, and we in our, I believe they both, I believe you have a copy of, seen a copy of that. I think David sent you a copy. If not, I'll send it to you. And just to let the state know that we wished for better, we understand, but not to forget us on our recommendations. So the other things that we have going on, during the legislative session, we'll have our 3rd annual ANS Students Day on the Hill, where we take students and teach them about how to talk about to legislators, give them some issues. So we'll go for a day to talk to several legislators, and they'll also meet with a cabinet secretary and the lieutenant governor. It's always a good day for the students to get some experience. What else do I have? The Virginia Economic Development Partnership, I believe I told you last time, we've been having meetings with them. They have met to get them more educated. A gentleman by the name of Trey Atkins is meeting with us, doing the meetings. Get them educated and put a portfolio together on nuclear energy. So far we've talked to BWXT, Virginia Tech, Lightbridge. He's going to Newport News, meeting with NewScale. So I'm trying to get him, I tease him, I tell him he's going to get his PhD in nuclear by the time he's done. So, but he's really been great to work with. I'll keep you guys up to date on how that goes. And if any of you all would like to sit down and meet with him and brief him on nuclear and issues that you think is going on, please let me know. I'll set up that meeting for you. I'm trying to get him up to DC to talk to Tom. I'll probably get him to talk to also in DC, David Blee. I think I'm going to have him talk to David, especially on the advanced nuclear, so what's going on there. We met with Senator Warner in Kane's office, trying to get their support on Senate Bill 3422, the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act. Because of the election, they hadn't done anything yet, but hopefully in the new Congress we'll get them to sign on. They seem pretty supportive of the idea. We're trying to get the delegation more engaged on some of the legislation that's going to be happening this year.
Is there a plan to reach out to any of the new members that are, there's what, 4 new members?
Yes, we will be doing that in the new year. I think that's a good highlight of our activities. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.
Any questions for April?
Oh, just a question. The Department of Energy is about to appoint a new secretary in charge of nuclear energy.
Yes.
And maybe we should plan to talk to her.
We can do that. I was telling Tom there's an Atomic Wings lunch that they get having monthly now. The Secretary of Energy actually showed up to it yesterday. It was a good conversation that they had yesterday on public-private partnerships with DOE. But yes, I agree that the new undersecretary we'll definitely have to meet with her.
She is a pushy lady. She's going to be wanting to do a lot. That might be good for us.
Okay, we'll definitely make that happen.
I know we're
Yeah, I do too, so.
extending the invite to get her down to Lynchburg to see potentially our facility, BWXT and all that. I know she's very familiar with our industry, having come from Westinghouse and INL. She knows nuclear and knows a lot of what's going on, which is great. I think it'll be good to have an actual permanent person in that in that space here.
It'll be very good.
So I think one of the things we may try to work out is, we've always looked for people to come speak to this group. So if we can arrange, like if she's coming to Lynchburg or something, to arrange to have her come for one of our meetings would be a good idea.
Great idea.
And maybe afterwards, we could try to have like a reception and stuff and open up to a few more people afterwards
Yeah.
to do it. I think that'd be really nice.
She's been here at VCU a year ago or so. I know she was here for one of the meetings, so it's not like she's unfamiliar with the area.
Yeah, but it would still, I think, I've been doing some work with the Regional Alliance in Lynchburg. I think they would be really engaged in probably putting an event on with her. Bob, do you agree?
Well, yeah, I don't think there's a question.
Yeah, I think they would really, it'd be something to do down there.
Great. Are we getting us a 2019 activity? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the annual reports. I think everyone has a copy in their folder. Before we get to kind of comments and edits and that aspect of it, I'll just give Al and I can kind of give a little background. We went through and kind of updated, obviously, parts from last year, but we focused a lot on the recommendations that we made jointly with VNEC to for the energy plan, to try to use that as kind of the basis for the 2019 kind of roadmap. And then it's a lot of which is just kind of updates to other areas that have happened in the industry in the Commonwealth over the past year. So we also tried to kind of, I think, make sure there wasn't as much duplication and things, and not simplify it so much, but streamline it a little bit as much as possible. So I'll open it up to the board for comments that folks have, things we missed, edits that you've seen, and then we can kind of go from there. So if people have comments, has everybody had a chance to look at it, or should we take 5-10 minutes to take a look?
Did I maybe miss somewhere the asset inventory? We're going to review that.
Yeah,
That's an appendix.
it is.
I don't remember seeing that anytime recently.
So
Yeah, the only one I've seen is
the old one. Okay.
it's
Me too,
it's the
okay.
old one which we'll
Okay.
look at updating, but I don't know if we brought the old one with us. That actually
And it's that old one, I think it's like 4 years old.
is it 4 years old?
Yeah.
It's the original.
It was the original of assets within the.
Yeah.
I know, for example, just updating. our
Just
name,
name
for
changes,
example. Yeah,
right,
just name
exactly.
changes and things like that. So, but that's mostly. I wouldn't say that's a. It's not substantive. It's mostly just.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's just content.
But it needs some review too.
Right. Yep.
So it plugs in with the only comment I had is that, it's just that I don't recall now exactly what the format of the inventory was, but something that has happened recently, which I think is worth noting, is that Surrey has applied for another 20-year renewal of its license, and that's a very, very significant fact nationally, and certainly from the Virginia energy standpoint, so it should be mentioned somewhere. So I'm not sure if it can just be mentioned in the inventory or mentioned somewhere else, but it ought to be in the report somewhere. So it's a major event.
That's a good question. That's a good point.
Probably ought to be mentioned both places.
Probably.
A footnote in the inventory, but a specific call out there.
So I think I might recommend. No, I was just.
The appendix C update, that's going to come from the VNet.
So that's attached. That's the second.
That's
That's
this.
this.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
so that's this
Okay.
sheet.
Recommendation you've seen, so.
So I think to Gene's point, I'd recommend on page 9 under critical role of nuclear energy in Virginia's economy. The second bullet there, I'd recommend under that we add a sub-bullet that has a sentence about the Surrey SLR application.
And that was just announced last week, I think.
It's been kind of in the,
Yeah, it's been,
they've,
There was a press
their
release.
intention has been that, but I think did they formally apply last, or announced last
So
week?
there was something filed with the
NRC.
SCC, not, or maybe it was NRC, I thought it was SCC.
It did happen after we made these edits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they have to put in a formal
but it's an easy thing to add.
renewal application. Yeah, we can.
It'll be sort of non-definitive. They've applied for whatever they filed.
Yep.
yeah, so the submittal was filed to the NRC, it was filed Tuesday, but it was October, there's a press release October 22nd, so whatever Tuesday of that week it was, that'd be the date. I don't see the date right here, but it was filed, with the official application was filed with the NRC the week of October 22nd.
So the other thing that I saw was that BWXT had got the contractor doing the engineering for the new scale small reactor,
Yes,
which is actually maybe small, but still good.
it is a big, that's a good point.
Well, it's the design for manufacturers.
Yeah, there's a press release on that. I have it somewhere. So I would, let me, on page 10, under the first bullet, we have two sub-bullets there. I'd say let's add a note and mention that.
Yeah, I think that's good enough.
Great. Portion on our meeting activities and things, those were taken directly from the minutes.
The other comment I had, and it may be more of a 2019 issue and not an annual report issue, the group can tell me, is how we could better connect with what the state's doing on climate strategies. And maybe that's not an annual report, although there is, I mean, obviously there's a section here about 2019 and beyond.
Yep.
And so we don't, maybe we don't include that in this report, but we have that discussion, that I think
I think that's a good
that's
point.
a potential.
Could
Is
we
there
invite somebody to give a talk on that?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Really,
Alan,
yeah, I like
is
that.
there a lead? Is there someone who's kind of a point person, or is that a?
Yeah, there's a retired Rear Admiral Ann Phillips, is appointed by the governor as a special advisor. I'm not exactly sure the title, but climate action or climate adaptation or something like that, but she is the lead.
But there's
Might be
certainly a
worth-
connection between nuclear energy and climate.
That might be worth looking at her as a potential speaker for our group next year. Okay. I agree. I think that's, we can maybe put that under 2019 activities as opposed to in the annual report.
And just to note that on the BNEC side, we agree on that, and so we have, I have been talking to a few people to make sure to include us. Offshore Wind is one of those companies I've been talking to. It's just that there's some synergy that we should be working together on.
Other comments, edits? So, yeah, this document, this is from April, that will be included as a Appendix C. Our energy plan recommendations, everybody's seen, that will be Appendix B. And then Appendix A, we'll take the action to make sure we go and update any changes that there have been to the asset inventory, which is mostly, if everybody remembers, it's a compilation of the industry, academics, facilities related to nuclear work, all sectors, both commercial and nuclear and UV and all that in the Commonwealth. So I'll take the action along with Alan Will to just go through that and make sure we've made any changes and reach out to anyone here if there's any questions we have about that. Okay.
So the Appendix B will have our recommendations, even the ones that weren't accepted?
Correct. It'll be the ones we submitted essentially to the to the energy plan.
But what is Appendix F?
Which one?
Well, I see that it says here that the list of authority board members would be in Appendix G.
Oh,
But where is?
I think that's left over from.
that might be have missed.
But I don't
Oh
see
yeah.
I don't see a D, E, and F.
You know what? I think that I think that
Left over
was.
from the old version.
I think that is a old version.
That's down the bottom. C is,
What we'll do is we'll make
C is
that.
the recommendation.
We'll make that D, and we'll add just our
No, that, oh. No, it's not. That-
yeah. I think that was legacy from the
That's the
old report.
consortium, so that's this document. That's this document.
Good catch.
I do actually have a real small minor editorial. Can
Please.
we- Just, you assume somebody will see this and they may not. Can we reformat that title so the logo doesn't cover up the words?
Thank you. Non-legal report?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so before we entertain a motion on this, I'll just go through and the changes or additions that we've come up with today. So the reformat on the cover page, on page 9, the bottom of the page under the Dominion nuclear units, we're going to add a bullet saying that in October 2018, Dominion has submitted an application to the NRC for a 20-year license extension for the Surrey nuclear power plant. And then on page 10, we're going to add a third sub-bullet to the first bullet on that page about the BWXT contract for, I believe it's manufacturing services with NewScale. On page 12, under Authority Administration, we're changing that from Appendix G to Appendix D. And then we will add Appendix D that will have a roster of all the NECA members for 2018.
Could you repeat
And
the
then-
last one, Tom, please?
Yep. On page 12, at the bottom of the page where it says Appendix G, we're going to change that to Appendix D. And then we'll add Appendix D with the VNECA roster. And then finally, we will just make sure that we'll make any updates to the asset inventory of Appendix A, with changes to facilities and company makeup. So
where's the first time C is referenced? Where's the first time Appendix C is referenced?
I believe it's under the,
Page 13.
yeah,
Didn't we need to reorder the lettering?
you're right. So on page 12, we'll actually change that to Appendix C. And on page 13, at the end of the VNEC update, we'll change that to D. Good catch. And we'll change the corresponding appendices. And then what we'll add to this, there's a cover letter that is just standard that will go out under my signature, just that we're submitting this report that's boilerplate from the past years. So what I would propose is if we could entertain a motion to adopt the annual report with the changes agreed to today. If that's acceptable to everyone, then we'll move forward, change it, turn it in.
So moved.
Okay, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great.
So Tom, are we gonna have a chance to look at the updated Appendix A before it goes in?
I mean, yes, I think we can send, well, let me just defer, do we have to vote again if we send that around, or?
Well, you just voted to change it for the discussion today,
Okay,
so as long as there's no need to vote again.
okay.
I wouldn't think there would be, but
Yeah.
it might help just to have the collective.
No, I think that's right. We'll take that action to update that in the next, by early next week, and we'll send it around before we finalize everything and send it in paper.
It's a big list.
It is a big list.
It's a big list. I think you guys, I think, from what I understand, how it happened the first time was an intern put it together and helped put together with help with some other people. It was a collective effort to put that list together. I think on high level in some of the companies, you definitely can make some of those changes, but there's a lot of companies on there. I don't know if you'll be able to do it in a week's time.
Okay, all right.
I just, I don't want to be devil's advocate there. I just had to look at that list a lot to find email addresses, so it's not easy.
So maybe, I think at the very least, we'll be able to see if there are obvious changes.
Yes.
And we'll send that around, and we'll have, if there are anything that you all see that need to be updated on that list, and we'll go from there. Does that work out?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Could I ask how, that's actually a useful list, how would we try to keep it up to date? Not in the next week.
I think what would be good, and this can also fall under maybe a 2019 action, and when we have, when DMME is able to hire staff again for Eric's replacement, is that something we take as an action maybe to see if we can dive deeper into that over the course of 2019?
Yeah, and I think, don't let me speak for you, April, that VNEC took the lead on the inventory, correcting it, making sure it was accurate.
I don't know, because it's really before VNEC had an executive director. Now, I think I know who led it, but again, it was prior Marshall.
I think so, yeah.
It was. So if we take that on, we can. I mean, I'd have to get some help, but yeah, it's a big list. And I had to go through it when we did the meeting with NEI a few years ago to try to email it, because there was no emails on the list of contacts.
Okay.
But that was still 2 years ago, so it's still probably
I mean, at the very least, it would not be a burden to have a standing item on any of our meetings, to have that list in front of us. And we could take a look at it and say, hey, they changed their name, or they,
Or a new
I
company.
mean, I wouldn't catch everything, but it would not be a burden, and, yeah, or a new company that,
But I'm sure
that
I
was
can
just a standing
find,
agenda item on this meeting to take a look at that list.
but I bet I could find a student to help us, to maintain that.
Should the list be on the web?
It actually was
I believe
on,
it is, yeah.
on the
I mean, it's
VNECA.
published as part of this report
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, because having a list that I know but you don't is not very much use to anybody.
Sure. I think it's still on the VNECA website, isn't it?
Last time I looked, it was.
Yeah, last time I looked it was,
Yeah, and keep in mind, it can be updated anytime.
Anytime, right.
Anytime, exactly.
Okay.
Great. So, I wanted to open up now if there are updates from any of the VNECA members that folks would like to share with the group.
Brief update on the IST, the BWXT's loop. While it's been sitting there, we just, about 2 months ago, completed work that repurposes it for easy use for cybersecurity. So essentially, it's a small working power plant with a full digital control system, and we kind of changed some of the control system around so we can actually run it without making steam, so we don't have to spend $1 gazillion to and have those issues. We can run just water through it and use it for in-service cybersecurity testing. So it's there, it's capable of using that. If we ever wanted to fire it up, we still could. But it's easier to use now for that. And then BWXT and Liberty are still in talks about transferring ownership of that asset. It hasn't been done yet. Liberty's bringing in a new engineering dean, and they want to have them in place in January to have him part of it. So that's still
So
in
is
the
the
works.
facility still owned by BWXT?
It's still owned by BWXT. It's still a BWXT asset. But it is being used somewhat now for some cybersecurity work. So that asset stayed, I think our inventory list had assets, that
Yeah.
certainly stays on there, it's still a viable asset. It's not mothballed.
Others?
So Gary can add to this, but in the spring, was it April? The National A&S Student Conference is being hosted here by VCU. So that's a big deal because lots of nuclear engineering students from all over the country and many from around the world will be here. So I don't know if there's been any thought in terms of any collaboration that can occur there, but at some point I think we should discuss about how, what can we do to take advantage of the fact that such a big event is occurring.
Gene, I talked to Soupy about that a week and a half ago, right before Thanksgiving, and we're gonna work with him to try to put something together.
That's right.
To do something with more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
It's a great opportunity.
How long is it? Is it a week long event?
It's a week, right?
Well, it's like
5 days.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something like that. I mean, I know there's a weekend involvement.
There's some activities and trips and
Yeah. But I think
about
that-
450.
That's great.
Is it going to be actually on campus?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And then day trips.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. So we talked a little bit about the new assistant secretary nominee. Hopefully will be confirmed here in the next week or so. New Barrymore, I think that will be an opportunity, like you said, to hopefully do some sort of event or bring her to some of the Virginia facilities. DOE continues to offer up funding in various ways for nuclear projects. We'd like them to be spending a little, even more of it in Virginia, so we'll keep working on that. And on the heels of really positive funding for the department, especially the Office of Nuclear Energy. I think that'll continue to ramp up. On the Framingham side, we just signed an extension to our accident tolerant fuel contract with the department, so over the next 2.5 years we'll actually be doing a significant amount of work on that in Lynchburg and also out in Washington State along with the department. So that's really a good thing. And then the final thing, and this is something I think we can talk with the governor's office about. Actually today up in Pennsylvania, the Nuclear Energy Caucus is announcing or rolling out their report that they've been working on for the past about 18 months. They've done a series of briefings on the importance of nuclear energy, not only to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but to national security, and touching on a whole bunch of environmental, economic, workforce issues. And so that's culminating in a report they're releasing today that will also include recommendations for what the legislature could do next year to try to maintain the capabilities that the state has. So it's a pretty significant step, and as we've talked about, and as we've tried to impress upon the governor and other folks here in Virginia, is the reach of plants like that closing in other states has an impact back here in the Commonwealth, because there's a lot of work that the companies here in the state do that at those plants. So that's a good thing. Similarly in Ohio, now that we're past the election, the new governor there has spoken positively about trying to see the importance of the state's nuclear plants and ways that they can potentially work to keep those open. So now that we've got a different pending change in leadership there at the state level, hopeful that the legislature can get something moving there to help Davis-Besse and Perry the plants there. And then beyond that, we talked a little bit about the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act, which the Senate is actually, I think, holding hearing today, amongst a number of other things to consider, which is there's a whole bunch in that bill to look at support for advanced nuclear projects through potential power purchase agreements, similar to what DOD has done with some renewable projects, and also infrastructure for advanced fuels and other programs that I think can help kind of the next generation nuclear projects. So that's all positive. I think that's something. The nice thing about that is it's got strong bipartisan support. I actually think there's more. Senator Murkowski from Alaska is the kind of the lead sponsor, but there's actually more Democrats on the bill, I think, than Republicans, which is interesting. With Senator Booker and White House, forgetting the others, but there's others on the bill. So there's a bunch of companion pieces in the House. We'll see how the focus changes as the change in the Congress happens in January, but in discussions, at least that I've had with the minority staff on the House side, there's an interest in still pursuing a lot of these issues that have gained bipartisan support, a lot of which have been nuclear. So that's a good thing. So beyond that, unless there are other updates, I thought we'd move a little bit to looking ahead at 2019. I think we've already talked about a couple of options, but I think this year we've moved in a good positive direction, and having some focus with some speakers and things at our meetings. I'd love to keep that going and using this as a venue for additional education and discussion outside of just our companies. So please, if you have suggestions or recommendations for good speakers or potential forums we could participate in. I like the idea of working with the offshore wind group and seeing what synergies might be there to look at some events or forums, that would be great. So if there are any ideas that we want to talk about today, please, we're happy to do so. Otherwise, we could just, I think, continue our trend of trying to bring those up as they come and moving that forward. Anything that folks want to bring up for a focus in 2019 that they've been thinking about?
Already brought up the climate strategy.
Yeah, I like that. And Gary, it might be interesting around the ANS student conference. I don't know. I wonder if there's an angle for having, if there's any of the ANS student leaders, if we're going to, do something as a group, having them talk about what they're excited about in nuclear, why they're involved in kind of the nuclear education
The
side of things.
two student organizers would be happy to come and give an update of the conference.
Right. Are they VCU students?
They're both VCU
Great.
students.
They're very vocal.
They're good.
They're good kids. They're good.
Anything else people have thought about? Also, what about, and Mike, maybe this is there something we can be doing to look more at kind of the nuclear Navy side of things in the Commonwealth? We spend a lot of time talking about the kind of commercial nuclear in terms of power and the academic side. Are there things on the defense side that would be worthwhile for the group to be highlighting?
It might be worthwhile to have, say an update from a DoD perspective to this group to think about how there's some synergies. There's an awful lot going on in the Navy's nuclear space. I mean, we talk a lot appropriately about DOE engagements on that side of the house and power gen and some other things. That DoD piece could be of interest because there's significant areas of potential overlap when you start to think about national security as, energy as national security. I can look at that and think about how it might be able to help.
That'd be great, because one of the things that's in the Nuclear Energy Leadership Act bill is there's a provision in there for power purchase agreements with the federal government. I know a lot of what people have in mind, because DoD is one of the largest users. I know there's discussion of how could microreactors benefit and help, especially with some of the fuel transportation costs that DoD.
I think they put money behind that one. I think they put money in that behind studying that.
They have, yeah. There's actually a study that's come out.
For being in Carroll's program, right?
And there's actually a study put out recently about the interest at DoD of microreactors and solving some of the issues they have around liquid fuels for especially like forward operating bases and things like that. So yeah, I think that might be something we should definitely look into.
On another side of an area that we could look at is BWXT is doing some nuclear medicine. They bought a facility. They developed a new device that they may want to ask them to come and give their an update on that. I saw a presentation a couple weeks ago. It was really interesting.
Doing mollies.
Right. Yeah. Maybe we can talk to Regina about that. Okay. So I think then, speaking of 2019, what we'll do, I'll work with Al. We'll maybe look at a meeting sometime in the first quarter, since we're meeting here towards the end of the year. I don't think we need to turn around and meet again in January by any means, but maybe by sometime late February or early March, or if there's a reason around the legislative session or something that we would want to get together, we'll look at that. But otherwise, we'll send out kind of a tentative agenda looking at some of these issues, and maybe we want to work at around the first meeting, and we'll look at a date that would work for everyone, if that sounds good. And with that, are there any other comments or updates from the group? Will or Al, do you guys have anything from? Okay.
Bill, do you want to talk with that?
Yeah, I was gonna, it's just starting, but ourselves and Virginia Tech, Ali and Andre Avanasov from our place, and Ali from Virginia Tech are involved. We were just funded for developing a training program for Ukrainian nuclear scientists. Since the problems out there, the educational aspect has been sort of cut off for them. So right now we're in development year. We're developing a program that will include the nuclear engineering program at Virginia Tech and the nuclear science, I call it the Ivory Tower program at GW. And we hope to bring over cohorts starting in a year from now, and you know, provides training for these, especially in that they depend on nuclear reactors, and the workforce, of course, needs updating every once in a while. So that's just started. It's funded by the State Department through the Department of Energy.
When that gets rolling, if there's ways that this group can help, whether facilitating visits or discussion, let us know. That's great.
Yeah, that'd be mostly at our Virginia campus, and of course Virginia Tech's Northern Virginia campus.
That's great.
Dr. Caps, did you guys get a grant from the NRC?
Got a grant from the NRC for scholarships for students. I think it was $125,000, and it went quickly. I mean, it's fair to say that demand dramatically exceeded supply. So we've applied for another one.
How many students?
I think there were 34.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times you get those scholarship grants and then you beg and beg and beg. So
We did.
That's actually good.
Yeah. We had an information session and advertised that widely, and they had over 200 students show up to show their interest.
That's great. Okay. Well, great. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll open it up for public comments.